Adding glow to elements inside of Photoshop is a staple for all photo manipulations. Today I'm going to practice adding glow to an image. I started off with some basic adjustments to the image, just using the camera raw to make sure I had a decent base photo to start with. Inside of Photoshop, I then used a curves effect to create the basic look of the photo. In this case, I wanted to go for a more blue hour vibe, so I lowered the highlights of the RGB and also the red and the green channels, and then boosted the highlights in the blue channel. After that, I masked out the curves from the subject to reveal the previously bright sections and to create the initial glow area. Using another curves effect, I created some highlights by raising the RGB curve and using the blue and red channels to give it a warmer feel. I then inverted the layer mask and then masked in parts where I wanted the highlights to appear using the brush tool. I then used the blend if option in the layer styles to remove the highlights from the darker areas. I added another curves layer to brighten up the shadows around areas where the glow would hit. I raised the RGB channel and colored it warmer using the red, green, and blue channels. Then I inverted the mask and painted the effect onto the shadow areas to brighten them up, before applying the same blend if options to remove the lowest shadows from being too bright. I then added yet another curves effect for the direct highlights, raising up the RGB curve and coloring it warmer using the other channels. I inverted the mask and painted the effect back onto the areas that are directly lit by the light source. I then added some eye highlights by making a new curves effect and raising the RGB channel. I then inverted the mask and painted over the iris just to brighten it up a bit. I adjusted the opacity of the layer to make sure it blended well with the original. To add actual eye lights, I created a new layer and painted a dot over the eyes in the area the light is coming from, making sure to use a soft round brush. I set the blend mode to overlay and used the eraser to remove the light from the eyelids and the top of the eye. I blended the light by adjusting the layer opacity. Now it's time to add shadows, so I made a new curves adjustment layer and lowered the midpoint. Then I inverted the mask and painted across areas of the image that would be in shadow from the light source. Next I added some warmth using a color lookup table, and I used the edgy amber LUT, and I went ahead and inverted the mask and painted it in where I wanted it to be before adjusting the layer opacity to blend it well. Next I made one more curves layer to add some contrast to the light fall off. I raised the highlights of the RGB, inverted the mask, and painted a single dot over the light fall-off area with a large, soft, round brush. Then I lowered the layer opacity to make sure it blended well. Finally, I added a new layer above my original image and painted a light source area into the flower with a soft white brush. I changed the layer blend mode to color dodge, turned off the transparency shape layers in the layer styles, and adjust the fill percent to blend well. After a bit more tweaking, I'm really happy with the final image. Here's the before without any glow, and here's the after. I'm super excited to use glow a lot more inside my photo manipulations, and if nothing else, this practice has made me 1% better than yesterday.